Hey, welcome back to What Heather Did. I'm Heather, and today I finished a project that I started back in June. And the joke behind that one was when I started it, my son was like, "Hey, do you think you'll finish this in time for Christmas?" And I was like, "Don't be rude. Of course I'll finish it in time for Christmas." And I didn't finish it in time for Christmas. Things happened, but okay, so this is the console that I started for my stepmom. She wanted it for where the kids like watch TV and stuff, so she could have that, and they have shelves and stuff to put videos and stuff, so it could be in there for the kids to get to. And gave her, I started it in June for her birthday, and then I gave it to her for Christmas. So here's what happened. So I already did the first part where I actually built the thing, so you can see. I'll put that up here. Then, I just needed to paint and build the doors because she wanted the barn doors and stuff. So I had to do that. Y'all, besides the fact that school started back, so I'm working full time, and there's just so many things that went wrong. For example, first time I cut the top, I cut it too short. And, so then I had to buy a new board and recut it, which also ended up being a little bit too long, and then got off. It was perfect. It was beautiful. And then when I went to attach it, I forgot to adjust, like the very end, last thing I'm doing, and I forgot to check my screw length to make sure the screws weren't too long, because I was doing screwing it in different places, and some of the screws were too long and went all the way through the top. So then I had to sand that. I had to put the right length in so those weren't dangerous. And then I tried just patching it, so I had to sand it and then actually repaint the entire top and then put the glaze on again to refinish. And so that twice. And then first time I did the glaze, I didn't like the way I was looking, so I repainted, started again. There were some things that happened. The barn doors, the track, the instructions didn't say how thick the door had to be. So I made the doors too thick. And then I had to adjust that and fix that. So this was a lesson it was just a lesson. There were a lot of lessons learned. So, if you're ready to find out how Heather fixed it and see the end result of that console table, let's get started. Alright, so let's get into this. And I'm just going to say, I think you can hear my washer in the background because I keep trying to do this when the washer's not running, but when is it ever not running? So the first thing I ran into was this board split. After cutting it, it split where the panel had been glued together, and then part of it had actually even gotten, like, you can see they're different lengths now. I was like, okay, awesome. So anyways, I just squeezed some glue in there, and honestly, this part of the board is probably going to be stronger than the rest of it. And I'm kind of concerned because this is for the shelf board. But I put that in there, kind of wiggled it back and forth, and then I just flip it over and add some more glue, and then clamp it together really good. All the shelves are currently very stable, so we shall see how this goes. And then, when they were all ready to go, and these have already been sanded, so after I got them sanded really smooth, I damaged them. Make them look like they've already been damaged a little bit. I had a lot of fun with this. Just, what could I use to cause damage? I used saw, hammer, screws, drill bits. I've seen some people use chains. I didn't have any chains. I don't know. I hit it with something else. I had a good time. Like I said, I hit the edges a little bit, and then I did sand a little bit just to make sure there weren't any like sharp edges on those, kind of smooth them out a little bit, make them look a little older. Alright, so to stain, I used a gel stain in coffee, I think. I don't remember. But we wanted it to be really dark and then a little bit darker in those little damaged areas, as you can see in the other board sitting there. And really, I should have been using a foam brush for this, but I didn't have one. So instead of doing the mature thing and going to get one, I just tried to make it work. So I put the stain on over everything, smoothed it out, and then I went over the spots where it needed extra, which worked really well on the other boards, but it was really getting kind of too hot for that right here. But after I got it on, I'd smooth that out. And then after I did everything and I got the whole thing, I was smoothing out, and it was very sticky at this point, but it's okay because this wasn't my last step anyway. After I had all the spots covered, I took the dryer's running. Some mineral spirits. I took a rag with some mineral spirits and then just used that to smooth it out until I got the look that I wanted. And yeah, it was pretty straightforward. Probably could have saved some time with a foam brush, but it's alright. And I mean, I like the way they came out, so it's all good. And don't forget to shake your paint. I also stirred the paint, but first I was shaking it. So this is the paint I used. I used it before to paint their door, like their front door, and another table, so that's why we use the exterior paint. I primed it using Ben Shellac based primer. I just didn't show that. And then sprayed it on. And I had already adjusted my sprayer, and I noticed it wasn't spraying very well, so I ended up having to test again and then adjust again. But it's okay. And make sure your nozzle is pointed the right direction for the direction that you are going. And just try to keep your sprayer flat. You can see as I got towards like the ground, I had to tilt because the bottom of the sprayer was hitting the ground. And I'm getting like the corners and stuff, but you don't want to spray too much. Any of the like spots that aren't covered well yet, just come back and get those. Because if you spray too much, you'll get drips. To do the back side, obviously I had to go to the other side to do this, and to get inside, this was kind of a pain, but I don't really know if I would have preferred painting all of the parts ahead of time. Like, honestly, I don't know that that would have been, I don't know that that would have made a difference. And I did make sure to paint everything inside, so even the parts that like you wouldn't actually see, I went ahead and made sure they got good coverage. So if you did happen to poke your head up inside the cabinet for some reason, it would still look nice. And then here you can see I turned my nozzle, so when I spray, you get the spray kind of going in a different direction. And this paint does give really good one coat coverage. I ended up doing like 2 full coats and then like a quick touch-up coat, and I still had paint in my container. Okay, understanding it looks very blue, and the paint is not blue. It's actually very pretty, like turquoise color. My phone just likes to color correct and make everything blue. The tarp is blue. Like, that's blue. But the paint does not actually match the tarp. Anyway, so I have 2 coats on. Just gonna wait for this to dry, which actually won't take that long, but once it's dry enough, I'll put it away and let it completely dry before I do anything else. Ta-da! Now initially, for my glaze, I was using stain to get that kind of aged look. I've done this before. It's what I did on their front door and another table I did in the same color, and I hated it. I didn't like it. I don't know if it's because I changed stain or what, but I just didn't like it. So I used this wash that I've used before from Rethunk Junk Paint, and it's like a colored wax alternative, and you just use, it's very thin, so you just use a brush to wipe it on, and you can wipe it back if you don't like parts of it, and it'll wipe off pretty good. So you can, keep going or fix some spots. And you can see right here it's not quite wiping off, but it wipes off enough that it works well. But you do have to make sure to keep your lines straight, and like, you don't want to stop in the middle of like a brush stroke. You want to keep going. And you can wipe it back and then have a look like this, which I really liked, but I know that's not what she wanted. She wanted a little bit darker. So I just continued doing the whole thing like that. In some spots, I let it get a little bit darker, and other spots I wiped, so it was a little, there was some variation in the colors in different spots. The corners are a little bit harder because it's hard to just brush that in there. So you have to, I had a rag to make sure I could wipe away anything I got somewhere I didn't want it. I could wipe that away immediately. And then it was time to actually build doors. So you can see I already have one sitting there. I was very excited. Did it end up being too thick? Yes, it did. That description was on Amazon for how thick the door could be, but not in the instructions, which seems perfect. And yes, I just have my little square lined up. I was running into problems with the battery dying on my saw. So I kept having to back up and start again, because heaven forbid you just go get a new battery. And when I got here, I just removed that and kept it straight for the last, couple of inches. Not a big deal. I think the hardest part here was trying to make sure that I got the doors the same size, because I built one to see how it would go, and then afterwards was trying to replicate it, which would have been better to just build them at the same time, cutting everything like at the same time. That would have been better, but I didn't do that. All right, so after I got the board cut and all, ready to go, it was time to do the trim pieces, which I did one by one because again, I'm trying to get everything to match. So, add a little bit of mustard. I'm curious, what do y'all put y'all's wood glue in besides a mustard bottle? Um, but I put a lot of glue on there to make sure it's on really well, and then wiped that off on my bench. I spent a lot of time making sure this was lined up, but again, I was doing this piece by piece because I really wanted to make sure that, also laughing at myself because I didn't make sure the other end was, so it wouldn't tip up on me, but whatever. I did this piece by piece to make sure that every piece would actually fit together well. Because I'm trying to match the other door. And also by doing it piece by piece and just like cutting a little bit until it fit just perfectly, I feel like it looks better and it came together better than, just cutting all the pieces and then putting them together. Hey, guess what? I made a thing. And see what I made? It's a door! And after making the doors, it was time to paint the doors. And if you're noticing, the door on the back is not primed. Yeah, I forgot to prime the doors. Actually, just the back of the doors. I did prime the front of the doors. This was really hard to glaze. This was an incredible pain in my butt. And I think it works out. It ended up looking okay and working out because it is shaped that way, so as it was aging, it wouldn't be perfect anyway, but these were a pain in the butt. Do not recommend doing anything like this with glaze. Mm-mm. And then here's kind of that final look in there. I still haven't finished the edges or anything, but it looks okay. It just was kind of a pain to do. And then it's too dark, so I have to fix that. But this was more time consuming than like anything else. But okay, I don't know if my phone will last very long, but when I did the doors, try to get, so it's not my shadow. I overglazed, and I've already sanded these, so it's not even as bad as it was. But I overdid the glaze, and I didn't think it looked bad, it just didn't go with what the glaze looked like on the rest of the piece. So what I've done is I gave it a light sand, very light sand, just to kind of scuff it up a little bit. And then I'm going over with a paint wash. I've already done this side to glaze the glaze kind of thing. So just a very light paint wash, very thin, and it's gone from, so I already did this one, really, really dark glaze to much more subtle And anywhere where I feel like the glaze wasn't coming through enough, I just kind of wiped the paint wash back a little bit. And now finally we're on to the top, or the second top to be more precise. And you can see this one is already primed. I went with the primed board because it was cheaper for some reason. So anyways, this is the edge that she picked. So I'm using actually my brother's router to do the edges. So for the back, I decided like where the doors would be, I decided to do like a little, I saw this and I was like, this is it. I have to do this for her. So on the boards, I'm going to decoupage on this paper. But this paper is not normal paper. This is more like fabric paper. Also, do you recognize that desk right there? That's the desk from the Silver and Gold challenge, where I turned it into my TV stand or entertainment center. Anyway, so this was, I never decoupaged with anything like this, so it was different. It was easier in that it didn't tear and it didn't bubble as much, but it was harder because it took more stuff to get it to kind of stick. And by stuff, I mean decoupage medium, like glue. I ironed the paper to make sure it was nice and flat, and I didn't cut beforehand. You can't tear this. This isn't going to tear. But I did make sure it was straight, and then I just wiped it out. And again, this doesn't stick right away. It was not as prone to sticking. So, but again, it won't tear. And I didn't have like any problems with bubbles. So I just used a cheap chip brush and used whatever kind of Mod Podge I had. I don't even know what kind it was. It's just what I had, so I used it. And dog hair stuck to this like crazy, which is awesome when you have a dog that sheds a lot. And I started using saran wrap because once I started putting enough Mod Podge on there to get it to stick better, it was actually coming through the fabric a little bit. So this just made sure I didn't get all over my hands. But I will say the bubbles were easy to get out. I didn't have to worry about it tearing, so if I needed to pick it up and fix it. But this, I saw somebody else's video where they used a similar paper. This isn't going to be something you can tear the edge to like blend your edges out. You're going to have to come up with a different way for doing the edges if you're doing, like if it doesn't cover the whole board. And then after it was dry, I just took a light grit sandpaper and went over the edges. And I did seal this with polyacrylic. That way the hair and dirt won't stick to it as much. It needs to be sealed. Oh, I used tape because it was like fabric, so I used tape to get all the fur and dog hair and my hair and everything off of it. So now it's time to start putting everything together. And if you've liked what you've seen, please make sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, do all the things. Leave me a comment. What do you think about the final build? What do you think about the color? I love the color, I'm not gonna lie. So these are the fixed shells, and I just screwed them in from the bottom with the correct length screw. Don't forget to check that. And easy peasy. Also, if you feel so inclined to support my channel, I do have links down below for all the different things that would help you support my channel. But just liking, sharing, and subscribing is helpful, so don't feel like you have to do anything else. And I do put like little felt pads on the bottom here. I thought about plastic feet, but I went with felt because of the type of floors they have. Once the shelves are attached, it's time to attach the backer boards. And I just used my brad nailer, made sure this was square, and then attached this. And this is where I start getting nervous, like I'm gonna mess everything up, which then of course happened, but whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna share I haven't shown most what I did, and I'm gonna share my process, not because I think it's the most brilliant process, but because it's something that has worked for me, and it took me a while to figure out. So the track came in pieces, which I guess I should have expected. Like a 6-foot rail would be hard to ship if you're ordering from Amazon. So the pieces fit together like this, and then the bolt goes in there. Okay, so here's what I've been doing. I've been doing this piece by piece. So I was measuring. I had my measuring tape, and I was doing all the measuring, and it wasn't going well. So what I started doing was I would put a piece in. You can see this bolt isn't all the way. It's not all the way tight yet. So that one can't move very much because this is tight. But, and you do have to assemble these before you really tighten those, because I had to pull this one back out to get this in. And then, I'm screwed, but you can't get this together unless there's some space in there. So what I've been doing is I put the piece on there. I take my magnetic level, I set it on here, because the problem is getting all the individual pieces level. And it said, you know, use a plumb line. And I was like, well, I don't have the thing for using a plumb line, or for a plumb line. So I just adjust until this one piece is level, and then I just put the screw in there and press down to make like a little dent. And then I take my little tool to make a bigger dent. And then I'm going to take, I'll just tighten that one down a little bit more. My drill, I think this is 9/64. And I'm gonna pre-drill because I don't want anything splitting. So I'm gonna put this back on here, and then I have my socket wrench, and I tighten this one down a little bit. Actually, a lot of it. Put that in there. And then as I tighten them, I also use the level to make sure like the screws were staying level. Because if you don't screw them in straight, it's not going to stay level. So, okay, that one's not tightened all the way, but it's tighter. So this one shouldn't just fall as easily. So I'm going to set that there. Hopefully that stays. No, I didn't put everything where it made sense. And then you have this little spacer. You can stick that in there. This part goes against the, like right there. This right here. And then, I don't know why I'm even pretending to tighten that by hand. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. Okay. And then as I screw that in, I'm just going to make sure I keep it level. And it's gonna, you know, go up and down a lot more as you get started. Then once you get it in there pretty good, it'll have a tendency to stay a little bit more level. Now, I can go in with my last piece, and then I'll do the same thing. And then I'll have a rail that, for the most part, is level. Hopefully, as long as my floor is level. And then to attach the hardware to the door, it gives you like all the measurements. So you just measured out, I marked where everything should go, drilled pilot holes, and then screwed everything together. And it worked. But, and this is how, this is after, I will show you in a minute how I adjusted this. But the doors swing out, they'll just swing outward, and so then I had to fix that. Alright, so barn doors come with a little track at the bottom to keep the door in line. But I made my doors too thick, so the one that came with the track didn't work. So I had to buy this one, which is an adjustable one, and it's got a roller on the front and the back. I like this much better than the one that it came with, which was just like a little metal U-bracket. The door rolls really easily through here. If it gets off the track, it's easy to get back in the track. So I think this was a better upgrade even. Like, I had to do this because I made a mistake, but I think this was even better anyway. Now, up in the left-hand top corner, if you look at the bolt where the rail is, you can see there's a little spacer. I took these out one by one and added a rubber spacer on there to add a little bit of thickness there, which I was really worried like the bolts weren't going to be long enough or something, and actually everything has worked fine. The bolts actually fit better. The track is still really secure. I haven't had any problems with that. I would avoid that in the future by getting the right thickness door, or making the right thickness door, but you know, it works. So the little bracket was super easy to put on, and then like I said, this just screws on there and it's adjustable. You just figure out where you want it to be, and there you go. And like I said, because it's a roller, it kind of guides the door back into the track if it comes off the track. So that was super handy. Alright, there we go. I told you that as we got to the very end, I made it. Like, this was my very last thing. And I was like, okay, I backed the screws out, put the right size in there, sanded, did some wood filler, and then just tried to patch, and it looked awful. So ended up having to resand the entire top, repaint the entire top. This is me still trying to patch it. It didn't work. It was crap. So I repainted the whole thing, reglazed the whole thing. Oh. See? Look how bad that is. Yeah, so I redid it. I did not just go with that. It's always that very last thing when you're almost done, right? Whatever. It looks good now.
Did she say you could come in?
Yeah.
Come in?
Yes.
I am. Oh my gosh, Heather. Let me go walk over and look. Oh my gosh.
I took some design liberties. Okay, so I'd actually intended to have this all set up and done when she came home, but she surprised us by coming home early. So she was so happy. She was crying. But these are little bumpers that go on the end of your track. So you decide where you want your door to stop, and this keeps the door from just sliding off the track. It also has little bumpers that you put on the top of the door that sits there so the door can't jump off the track. It sits high enough so that if the door were to like be hit, it would just hit the rail and it wouldn't fall off. So those are also in place to keep your door from falling. And the bumpers are a little rubber piece, so it doesn't hit anything. All right, here we go. And that is it for today. As always, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for what Heather does next time.